most trusts that are put together today by attorneys are what we call living trust, is a term that people are familiar with. It's a grantor trust. And it kind of goes against the definition of a trust. If people have a living trust, there's two questions I asked them. I said, when you look at your trust documents, look to see if you're the creator and the trustee. And then the other thing I asked them to look for, and I think this is where the light bulb kind of went off with your father-in-law, is
I do. I'm fortunate. I have a father-in-law, not an in-law.
that's right.
Right.
That's why I want to say it right.
Right.
Um, is you have them look at the tax ID number of the trust, and if it's your social security number, that should raise all kind of red flags, because how's that not you? You're not placing assets into a trust that is separate from you if it still has your social security number as a tax ID number.
And Roger, that's what blew my wife's mind. Because when she looked at her dad's trust, because unfortunately her mom passed away a couple of years ago, but when she looked at her dad and looked at the trust, it was his name as a creator, and he was the trustee, and it was his social security number.
That's 95% of the trust we see out here. This is what is taught in law school, because they don't teach English common law. They don't teach irrevocable trust. This is, if our attorneys don't know it, how are we supposed to know it?
Right.
So
then let me ask you this.
You said something real quick that I want to touch on in regards to where this information comes from. You were just talking about family legacy and knowing who we are. Legacy is more information than it is money. And we don't know enough about our past to have any kind of real legacy. Right. So in regards to information and where this stuff come from, and some of the names that you were mentioning, the families of the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and the Gateses and these huge families, right? Do you know who the Mellon family is?
I like with Carnegie and Mellon. Yes, I know who they are, okay. And they were around, and they were huge back in the industrial age.
Mellon Bank, just for a little perspective, Mellon Bank has been in this country since the 1500s. Chase Bank has only been here since the 1800s. That's how old Mellon Bank is. Old money, right? Well, my mentor's mentor was trained by one of the Mellon boys, the heirs to the Mellon dynasty. And so my mentor actually got to go with his mentor to the Mellon estate in Santa Monica, California. And he said, Roger, it was obviously huge and impressive. He said, but the most impressive thing was we went into the study, and just books, walls stacked, just high ceilings, books to the ceiling on every wall. And he said none of them were written by anybody. His last name wasn't Mellon. It was all family records and history. He said that's the legacy they leave, is they know who they are. He said that was the most impressive thing I've seen. And the most impressive thing about that estate was the family lineage history that they kept record of, because that's the real legacy.
Wow, you have to say that again. So these weren't books that, like, I have a library of books but they're written by all kinds of people. This was the Mellons passing down the information and keeping record of all the things that made the family strong.
He said everything in the study was written by a Mellon about the Mellons. Everything in there.
Wow.
And it was wall-to-wall information.
Wow.
We just don't have that, which is why we don't leave legacy. Money is a part of legacy, but the biggest part of legacy is information and knowing who you are going backwards, so you know where you're going moving forward.
Got you. Wow, that's super, super impressive. So let me ask you a question. When people often come to you, and I know you've had several of our MWR members, and I know the people that you've been working with for years, and what are some of the roadblocks that they run into, or the pitfalls that they think they know, and they think they're in the right place and situation? Obviously, you talked about a big one, the first question you asked, but then what is that next step? Help us understand why the trusts that are here with MWR under the Trust My Assets umbrella, why those trusts are different from the everyday trusts that most people get.
Well, let me start with this. The biggest roadblock that people run into is just mindset, right? And that's what MWR is here for. True financial literacy is not taught every day.
Right.
So we got to tear down that old 401k mindset to teach them about a DCA and a PRA and land banking and how to eliminate debt like they eliminate debt. Mindset is the biggest challenge, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to what I do and what makes it different, the biggest thing is we structure a contract differently than most attorneys will structure a contract. They're going to structure what we call a revocable trust or a living trust. By IRS definition, is called a grantor trust. I have some articles that I'm going to share with everybody today so we can see that this is not just everyday people. This is the information that people with millions of dollars don't get right. And we see it all the time. So getting the contract right is very, very important. But putting that contract in the proper jurisdiction of law makes it bulletproof. And that proper jurisdiction is common law, not common law like common law marriages. That changes from state to state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that's a statutory law. I'm talking about English common law, what the Constitution was written under, what the true law of the land was. The common law was here before there were any states. It is the true law of the land, and that's a jurisdiction of law that we can operate in that most people just don't know. So that's the biggest difference. But the biggest hurdle is really reshaping that mindset, which is what MWR does. From a W-4 adjustment to debt elimination to proper trust structure, we're shifting mindset so people can be free financially.
No, well said, well said. And you guys got to put some fire on that because that was well said. Why don't we do this? Because I know people are thinking, well, because you said something important. Well, it's not just the everyday people with millions of dollars. So why don't you give us some examples of, some real life examples that we can see, some people that we probably know their names, who they are, what they've done, and where they may have been given the wrong information because they didn't have this, like you said, this really now I see the lineage even better than ever before. This comes from the Mellon group. It's how this information was ultimately passed on, so that way you now cherish that information and are passing it on to all the MWR members.
Yeah, my mentor's mentor was trained by Roy Mellon. Roy Mellon literally had a genuine belief in God and thought it was dead wrong that these families keep this information to themselves. He had to change his last name. He had to divorce his family, but he did that, changed his name, and went out and taught 7 nationally certified trust counselors. My mentor's mentor was one of those 7. So this is coming from the horse's mouth.
Right. No, that's so again, membership has its privileges. And because you consider, and this is what I appreciate about you, is that you looked at MWR, our core value, where our CEO and founder's great core value, where his headed, where he's led by, that you said, you know what, this is MWR family, so this is going to stay. This is the bloodline is just expanded a little bit, but it's still in the bloodline.
That's right.
I love that. I love that. So everyone should be like super. I see all the fire emojis. They should be super excited that they're here. So why don't you go on and get into it? Show us some people that maybe we know that have kind of stepped into the wrong thing. It's the same kind of thing my father-in-law is experiencing. They may be experiencing similar.
So we talked about, if you watched any of the videos before we pull these clips up, if you watched any of the videos, we talked about there's levels to this, right? When you're talking about protecting assets and succession planning, there's levels to it. And when you don't have any kind of plan together, that's not much of a, that's ground floor level. You're not doing anything. Right. A will is the next step up. A grantor trust or a living trust is the next step up. Above that is going to be an irrevocable trust. And above that's going to be an irrevocable trust placed in the proper jurisdiction of law. Now, having said that, I want you to see the level. So there's doing nothing, there's a will, and then there's a revocable trust. Those are the lowest 3 levels, right? I want you to see these people in these articles are names that everybody's going to know. And I want you to see what kind of entities, if they have entities in place, and the struggles that they're dealing with because of how they've structured their legacy. All right. So, Martina, you want to pull up the John Singleton? All right. So this is at the time of his death. Okay, so this is John Singleton, the guy who did Boys in the Hood, and yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff. Really popular, well-known, successful guy, right? So that, well, I was looking at that, but anyway, scroll down. So we'll just get to the meat and potatoes of it. It says at the time of his death, the filmmaker left over $6 million in assets. However, with an outdated will signed in 1993 and no trust established, Singleton's heirs were at the center of the conflict. This is what you call probate. You don't have things set up right, and then there's a conflict, and it takes years to settle. It says at the time that Singleton established the will in 1993, he only had one child, Justice Singleton, according to Forbes. Singleton's mother, Sheila Ward, filed to open probate proceedings to use his 1993 will. Within her filing, Ward identified that Singleton's assets were $3.8 million. She also listed 5 acknowledged children and 2 minor children. So when he made some initiative in structuring his legacy, he created a will. He had one child. He didn't do anything else, but he had another 6 or 7 kids. And so now you have somebody fighting on behalf of those children, saying that this will is outdated. It ends up in probate. It takes years to fight those things out. That's not much of a succession plan. That's not how we leave legacy.
So let me ask you. Let me ask you a question. When something goes to probate, Roger, and now it takes years to get this thing settled, what happens to someone's estate, and why is that a problem? Because I understand a will, it means you will go to probate. That's what it should say. You will go to probate. So what is the problem with going to probate?
Well, the problem with probate is you're going to eat up 40, 50, 60% of your estate in legal fees and attorney fees and court fees before anybody you love gets to touch that stuff. That's what probate does. It eats away at your legacy before the people you love get to use your legacy. James Brown died on Damo in 2006. I think his estate came out of probate in 2021 or 2022.
Yeah. Well, I know. So if I just make a basic, simple statement, if I left my family $1 million as an example to keep math easy, probably close to $600,000 or more could be eaten up just on probate fees, attorney fees, and all those kinds of things. I know the probate, which was a will. Can you believe J. Paul Getty, who was one time the wealthiest man on the planet, left a will? It went into probate. And if I'm not mistaken, it still has not come out. And J. Paul Getty died, I believe, in the 70s, or late 70s, early 80s, and it's still in probate some 40 some odd years later. And the reason, and it's absolutely getting eaten up, because what they do is he had properties all over the world. He had assets all over the world, so they have to go fly to go see those. Of course, they need to take a private jet to get there. They got to go stay there to assess the value of those things, and the billable hours are just clicking away to do all of that, and it's just eating away at the overall probate, and the people are still fighting over it.
J. Paul Getty is an interesting story because I'm familiar with that will, but have you ever seen All the Money in the World, the J. Paul Getty story?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what happened at the end?
Let me try to remember what happened at the end. I know he got his Sunday. I remember they showed all his properties, and he had all this stuff. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the end. Tell me the end.
All of the tangible assets.
Tangible assets, right.
Tangible assets. And then they detail where he held them in all these different trusts and foundations. Gotcha. I have no idea what that will was about. I've heard about it. I understand it's still being fought over.
Right.
But the stuff he really valued, the end of that movie told you where he kept it.
Okay, got you. You're right. Okay, I remember them showing it, and they showed all the tangible assets, and then
all tangible. None of it was about dollar bills. None of it was about money. It was all about tangible assets.
Right.
Held in trust and foundations. I was like, wow, they tell us stuff everywhere. You got to pay attention. So let's go to the next article, and this is a current superstar. who let me down in the playoffs. All right, Steph Curry. Steph Curry will receive $75 million in stock from Under Armour on top of annual payments. After signing a lifetime deal with the company, the stock has been put into a revocable trust to benefit his family for multiple generations. A revocable trust. Now, we've done this in the past, but I want everybody on here, if you got a notepad, here's what you want to Google. Does a revocable trust have asset protection capabilities? Or you can switch that out and say grantor trust. They're the same thing. There is no asset. That brother got $75 million and put it somewhere it's not protected.
Oof. Oof. So if he was ever sued, if something ever happened, they could come and try to attach that trust because they even though he thinks it's a trust that's going to protect him.
Martina's a bomb. Hold on. You already got the Google. Scroll back up.
Does a revocable trust have an asset protection?
Transferring property into a revocable living trust does not offer any form of asset protection from your existing or potential creditors. Hello. Oof. It's a simple Google search. It's not hard to figure this stuff out. Steph Curry is no slouch.
Right.
That's just one form of income that he has through Under Armour. $75 million that will not be protected. Will not be protected.
So the likelihood of it creating for generations to come, all you have to have is someone be in the wrong place at the wrong time, have a bad accident, and then boom.
And you're telling everybody. This article is letting people know that you have a revocable trust. That's you. That's an alter ego. It's not a separate legal entity.
Right.
So everybody knows that $75 million in the trust is still attached to you.
Got you.
Bad idea. Wrong trust, but publicizing that is a horrible idea. A simple car accident could put everything in that trust at risk. Wow. Now, let's go to the king, Elvis Presley, and his daughter. Let's take a little look at what's going on with the Presley family. So this is a mother-daughter situation. Says the judge asked for the settlement, and there's a dispute between mom and daughter about what's her name? Lisa Presley.
Lisa Presley, yes.
Yeah, Lisa Presley
and Priscilla Presley.
Priscilla. So Lisa was the daughter, I believe. Priscilla's the mom.
Right.
The daughter died, and mom is having a challenge with what she did with her estate. So let's scroll back up just a little bit, Martina. Right there. It says the judge asked for the settlement and the motion to seal to be filed. I think they made an error. The motion to be sealed to be filed by June 12th and set another hearing in the case for August 4th. The families are happy. Schauman told reporters outside court, everyone is happy, unified together, and excited for the future. Justin Gold, attorney for Riley Keough, told CNN she is very content. So Lisa Marie Presley, Elvis Presley's only child, died in January, and after being hospitalized following an apparent cardiac arrest at her California home. Here comes her mother, Priscilla Presley, disputed a 2016 amendment to her daughter's will, which states that Lisa Marie Presley removed her mother and former business manager Barry Siegel as co-trustees, replacing them with her child Riley and Benjamin Keough. Benjamin Keough later died in 2020, so on and so forth. So we can stop right there and let's just break this down. I told you the lowest level of this stuff is doing nothing. The next level up is a will. You're seeing a will can be challenged. 2 of those articles was a will being challenged. But this young lady did have a trust in place. But the fact that she was able to fire her mama and her manager and remove them as trustees means it's revocable. She had a revocable trust, which is still her. So her mama was able to challenge the will and saying, we didn't have enough documentation to prove that she really wanted to fire me as a trustee. So all of this stuff ends up in probate. They end up fighting about it. Fortunately for this family, they were able to work things out. Right? But this is that lower level stuff. Having nothing in place. Having a will, which is an express invitation to probate. Having a revocable trust, which will keep you out of probate. It will accomplish that. But if you're Steph Curry with $75 million, bro, any legal suit is all of that's at risk. You need to have an irrevocable trust. And if you really want to protect it, you have to put that thing in the proper jurisdiction of law. You don't hear about the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Fords, any of these major families. You don't hear about them dealing with these issues. You ain't never heard of none of those families ended up in probate. And what you've also never heard is any of them in tax court.
Right.
Proper structure dictates function. And if you structure things properly, it determines how much of your wealth you get to keep and how much they get to take from you. These are just, all of these have popped up in my mentorship group. These articles are coming from the class like in the last 2 weeks. Wow. This is everyday stuff. And it don't matter how much money you got. It matters how much information you have. And clearly these folks didn't have enough information.
You know what, Roger, you said, and I want you to repeat it because I want people to put this in the chat. So, because to think is to put in ink. So I hope you took notes here, but by putting in the chat, you're going to get the second best part of that. But talk about how structure, dictates
function. Structure dictates function. So let's take it off of trust for a minute. And let's just look at retirement. Because MWR is changing people's mindset about structure and retirement. Because instead of being tax deferred, we're teaching people how to be tax advantaged. Right? Instead of putting money into a 401k and an IRA, which in my opinion is the worst place on the planet to plan for retirement, we're teaching them how to maintain control of their money and bypass all them penalties and the nonsense that comes with government qualified plans. That's structuring your retirement. Structure dictates function. Now you're talking about a tax-free retirement, not a tax-deferred retirement, a tax-free retirement. Structure dictates function. Same things when it comes to structuring your business, your family, your nonprofit. How you structure those things determine how much of your money you keep and how much they take from you.
No, that's a very, very good point. So some people will ask, well, why is it? Because we're hearing that, wait a minute, we could potentially, our income tax liability could be as little as 5% or sometimes even less than that. How is that possible?
Well, for you and me, it's not, right?
Right.
So what we have to do is shift that income tax liability from you as a person to the trust system. Because a trust can do what we can't do, but a trust can run any business that a person can be involved in, any business that any company or corporation can run. The trust can do the exact same thing. So if you're using what the tax code allows a trust to do versus what a tax code allows a corporation or a person to do, the trust can do more. Two things specifically it can do. It can give 100% of its income, gross income, to a beneficiary, passing on tax liability to that beneficiary. The second thing it can do is it can give 100% of its gross income to charity and write it off, every dollar of it. No person can do that. They limit us at 60%, and they limit corporations at 10% gifts to charity. You can't give it all away. Well, a trust can do that. So when you know what a trust can do and you structure it right, you use the laws that are in place through a trust that allow you to do things you can't do. So we can't get our tax liability down to 5% or less. What we can do is shift that tax liability to an entity that can.
Got you. That's very, very solid. That's super, super strong. And that's really, again, going back to what you said in the very beginning, mindset. It's just shifting your mindset, realizing, for example, the videos that you have in place and that are in the back office of everyone, their MWR site, when they go to Trust My Assets, those videos are very important to watch, because not only are you going to get a little bit of what you heard tonight, but you're going to really get drilled down into why what they're doing and where they are today, and really understand how the structure is going to dictate function, which is where they want to be financially, to be able to keep most of what they earn, if not all of what they earn.
And honestly, Dom, the mindset shift won't come with watching the videos.
Right.
That is just what opens the door.
Oh, great way to put it.
Once we start going into the more private trainings that we're going to have, that's where the mindset's going to change. Because we've all been taught to function the way they want us to function all of our lives. So we're going to have repeated conversations to break down what's been indoctrinated into our minds. Once we start having those conversations, people's mindset will open up. It will shift. The information on the two webinars is just that, to open it up a little bit, to help you see there's a light at the end of this tunnel. May not be something you can grasp right away watching it, but now we're going to start working, moving you closer to that light in understanding. And then you can have that full mindset shift. But we're not going to give that to the whole world. We're going to do that for the family only.
For the family only. And see, you said something that's critically important. I hope everyone got this and they didn't miss this. When you get that knowledge, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm paying for the trust to be put in place for me. And really, the what you're really paying for is that walking down that mindset shift and the knowledge. Because one of the things that you said from the very beginning, we first met, you said, Andamo, I want this knowledge passed on to generation, because if it's not passed on, didn't do anything for anyone. So if people don't understand it, it just stopped with them.
And which is why I want to start having those conversations, what we were just alluding to, because this is the one part of MWR that's a little bit different. Yes, the experts will still put everything in place for you, but this is legacy stuff. This is generational stuff. If you don't understand it, we're not going to be able to teach your kids. We ain't going to be here. Right? My job is to make sure that the family understands the information, that we all shift our mindsets to truly building legacy, so that you can teach your children. Because if they don't know how you're operating, they'll lose it as fast as you built it. So somebody's going to have to impart to them, and they're going to have to impart to the next generation. This is one area of MWR where I need the members and the customers, the clients, to actually be focused on learning generational wealth principles.
Okay, so then let me ask you this. I'm someone who doesn't have a trust, and maybe I'm a homeowner, haven't done anything, but I haven't done a trust. But I know now I'm starting to understand I really need to protect that asset in an ironclad type of way, not where, like we just talked about, Steph Curry. Since everyone knows, especially since everyone knows, someone could trip and fall over his foot a certain way, and all of a sudden he's in court and some major medical bills that he's going to have to lose some of that money to them. So in order, what are the steps that I should take? Because let's say I'm here. Let's say I'm this where I'm asking. I have this one asset, and I know I need to go watch that video first. Watch the whole video on protect my assets, the entire video, which I think is about 30 minutes. Watch that, and then set the consultation. And when I set the consultation, I need to make sure the time I set that I have basically an hour available to talk with you, because I know I'm going to have some questions once you get into it. And then, so I make sure I set the appointment and I keep the appointment I set. And then from there, we can go forward, and you'll help me figure out what I need to do to structure myself properly and have something that actually protects my assets, because that's all I can kind of afford right now. And that's all of where I am. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Those will be the steps. Watch the video, set the appointment, and let's make sure that you understood the information in the video, and then we'll talk about how to apply that information to your situation to firm up and help you protect what you spent your life building.
Okay. Then if I didn't have enough money to do that yet, then I can build my MWR business. It's going to create cash flow for me, so I can then take that, assign that to do this so I can protect the asset that I need to protect. If I don't have an asset to protect, I can listen to that to have some more information. I don't need to schedule an appointment, but I just now know, and I'm motivated to go build my business so I get the cash flow so I can acquire some assets so I can protect them. Or I build the income where my income is sufficient enough that I want the grand poobah, if you will. I want all three structures so I can now really build my legacy. Are we?
That should be the goal. The ultimate goal for everybody inside the MWR should be to build this thing to at least $70,000 a year.
Right.
Because at that point, everything MWR has is going to make sense for you to apply every last bit of it and keep every last bit of it. Right. That's the goal. Keep all of it. It's not about how much you earn, it's about how much you keep and spend.
That makes all the difference.
A lot of people earn a lot of money, but when the IRS is taking 40-50% of it, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It's about what you keep and what you spend. What you earn doesn't matter.
Well, Roger, man, I can't tell you how powerful tonight has been. And I know we want to leave them with that video so they can watch this video. I think they'll gain a lot of information from. And so I appreciate, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you. And I'm saying that I'm speaking for all of our MWR qualified financial directors, the whole family. They love and appreciate you more than you know. And I'm saying it for them, even when they don't fully understand it till they connect with you, then they're going to go. And then as they start walking through those steps, they start going, wait a minute, I can do this and I can do that. And they'll start to learn what real freedom really is. Okay.
So, we've been talking now for about 6 months?
Yes.
Have you had a mindset shift in that 6 months?
Big time. And it's still shifting. It's still shifting.
Absolutely.
And then what else did I do? I have my son now going through that mindset shift as well. So everyone, I just want you to understand, Brian House, our CEO and founder, myself, we're not just talking about this, we're living this because we know what the impact it has. So I can't tell you enough that if you're prepared, you absolutely get it done. If you're not prepared yet, go build your business so you can get it done because it'll change everything for you. So with that, I'm going to give it to you, Roger. If you need to say anything to take us out, and then you can lead us to the video.
No, I don't really have anything to say. I would say, guys, if you're not in a position where you're ready for the Trust My Assets portion of MWR, you have everything you need inside of MWR to help you get ready. Just use it.
There you go. So with that, Martina, if you could play that video and we'll leave on this video. Everyone watch this video. You'll get a lot of information from it.
Rockefeller, Carnegie, Morgan, Ford, Vanderbilt. These are all names you're probably familiar with, not just because of the wealth they created while they were living, but because of their ability to pass it on from one generation to the next. You see, their names will never be forgotten because their children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on will continue to benefit from their wealth with almost no chance of it ever going away because it continues to grow. So, how did they do it? Trusts. That's right. By properly creating a series of trusts, they were able to virtually eliminate taxes and protect their assets while being able to build, live, and leave a legacy all at the same time. This is exactly why MWR has created our Trust My Assets program. Before now, trusts, the knowledge of how they work, and their benefits have typically been limited to just the wealthy elite. Why? Because most experts charge tens of thousands of dollars to structure them properly, eliminating the masses. Most wealthy families only pass this information on to other family members, and the average consumer typically doesn't have access to the experts needed to structure them properly. However, thanks to MWR, you now have access to all the trusts you'll need, experienced experts to structure them properly, and you'll now be able to enjoy the benefits at a price you can afford. In the words of Nelson Rockefeller, your goal should be to own nothing but control everything. Trust My Assets gives you the ability to do just that, providing the maximum amount of protection for your assets against creditor collections, lawsuits, judgments, liens, and a whole lot more. What you don't own can never be taken from you. And with Trust My Assets, your trusts will now own your assets, but you still have total control over all of them. But that's not all. Taxes are our biggest expense as Americans, and believe it or not, our tax system in the US is completely voluntary. However, once you complete that first W-4 for your first job, you volunteered to participate, and the only way out is through trusts. This is a key benefit of being in business with MWR. Think about it. W-2 employees pay the highest taxes of 28 to 37%. We help them become business owners to reduce that tax liability down to 18 to 22%. We then help them become investors to reduce the tax on that income down to 10 to 15%. And last but not least, we help them establish trusts so they can shift their tax liability to their trust at a rate of 0 to 5%. Imagine making $100,000 per year, and instead of giving $20,000 to $30,000 or more to the IRS, you are able to only have to pay $5,000 or less. What would you do with that extra money year after year? These are just a few of the many ways Trust My Assets can benefit you and your family. However, one of the most important benefits is your ability to pass your legacy on from one generation to the next, without ever having to worry about your family dealing with probate or taxes on the assets you leave behind. If your ultimate goal in life is to leave an inheritance to your children's children, then Trust My Assets gives you everything you need to make it happen. So, what are you waiting for? Get back to the person that provided you with this information and find out how MWR can help you trust your assets today.